I can, sorry, Mike Novak. I just happen to be texting with Brian. I can hear you now. It's good if you keep your microphone off. So however you have it set up right now seems to be fine. Go ahead and talk and I'll let you know if it starts echoing.
Okay, to the public, we took a roll call. We have a quorum. And we're moving on to the agenda item. Any public comments, items not on the agenda? Okay. First item up is 47 Pleasant Street curb cut. Determination under section 10.3 site drainage plan from the owner Larkin. So we just went out on a sidewalk about an hour ago, and looked at the proposed driveway. We also have a plan. You can see the correspondence from the police chief finding the proposed driveway is safe. Any opening remarks from you, Brian?
Should I stand? I mean, how do they can see me?
You can stand.
Well, sorry. Yeah, so Brian's done some. As you said, we were just out there and we walked around the site and I showed you where the new curb cuts going and where we're taking out the old curb, the two curb cuts. Those existing curb cuts are about 40 feet total. We're proposing 15 feet of curb cut. A little bit closer to Pleasant Street. I think I kind of went over why we are, why we designed the house the way we have and why we laid it out the way we have and why the proposed driveways are a little closer to Pleasant Street than the existing. Just given the privacy that they like on the northern side of the lot. There's really not enough width to have a true backyard on the eastern side and then setbacks on the front. So that's kind of why we laid it out the way we did. So again, we've got parking space for 4 cars at a minimum. We've got a little turnaround that's going to be stone or pervious, and the rest of the driveway is proposed to be paved. And as I said out of the site to some of you, and last time we came in just under the existing impervious coverage. And then Mike Novak, the engineer, has designed a drainage system to handle all the house, the roof runoff. So I know we talked about that at our first meeting a few weeks ago. And I mean, if anybody has any other questions for Mike, he is on the call. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. Pretty straightforward overall.
All right, thanks, Brian. Any comments from the board? Laura Kang.
I saw the correspondence from the chief of police saying that under his opinion, there was no negative impact on the safety, given that the sight lines are the same. However, I did have a question about the driveway moving much closer to the Pleasant Street intersection now. That doesn't seem like it's making the condition better from the terms of just having the driveway that much closer to the intersection. And I wondered if you could just address that a bit more for us in terms of the turning radiuses and any
yeah, I think in terms of turning radiuses, I think we're fine. I confirmed with Mike as well as we were doing this. And I know we talked a little bit about parking. If people park on the side of the street, that ideally they're not parking between the corner and the driveway. And as I said, the front of the house is down farther to the north, so people would ideally, if they are going to park on the street on that side, which I don't know if they are technically allowed to, they would park in front of the house most likely. And I did say we could coordinate with police and or selectmen to on the sign there that says, look, parking right in the corner. That's totally fine. So I just saw really no parking signs of any kind on the street, so I wasn't sure what was allowed or not. So, but I think it's kind of in a nutshell. I think again, the police chief said it was safe in terms of turning and sight lines. So I think the only real issue might be that one parking
area.
Just along those same lines, it looks like there would be one spot available between the Pleasant Street and the curb cut. And with Pleasant Street being a busy street and a sidewalk right there and kids on their bikes, if there was a car parked there, I think the sightlines would be pretty poor for a car pulling out. I guess I'd like the board to consider maybe it's on a condition that the signs go up on that side, no parking in the corner. I don't know if we're able to do that, but I think that could
Can't
be.
condition it, but yeah, you can consider
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we can't tell them what to do, but I think that that's a little bit of a, not a little bit, that is a safety concern.
I mean, could we confirm or at least talk to the police chief a little bit more, like us, builder and so forth, and see what he thinks about that, and if it is a concern that then goes to whoever is selecting, I'm not sure who.
I'm not gonna be able
okays
to quote
that,
the
but-
law exactly, but it is a law that you're not allowed to park X amount of feet from the corner, so it's just a matter of whether the town is gonna put up signs. Exactly, so I think that's the issue, I mean, there is no parking, it happens, but I think it's just someone, we need to see if they'll put a sign up.
So I noticed a considerable ponding on the street, not that that's your fault. Just wondering not to add to it, that I think as we discussed that we would like to have any or I would like to see any runoff not go towards the street to kind of compound that issue.
Yeah, we'll do what we can, and obviously between our property and the sidewalk and the street, you know, not a whole lot we can do to kind of stay flat, but we'll pitch slightly, but the driveway, we'll do what we can to crown it a bit, and then the stone area, the little turnaround will be pervious, so we can direct some of that water into there. It's not a problem.
Sarah, Craig?
I think the issue is not about the driveway, it's the driveway, people exiting the driveway and people turning onto Wilmot are potentially in conflict with a very short distance with poor sight lines. So it does seem to me that it's hard, that it certainly doesn't make the safety.
Doesn't improve.
It doesn't improve the safety, whether it's an insurmountable barrier. I'm trying to get my head around, but I think it's for some people turning onto Wilmot Street in conflict with people pulling out of that driveway, strikes me as challenging.
I mean, yeah, I understand that, I mean, I know that the police chief already opined on it, that it was okay, and, you know, as I was driving, back to the soccer field and then over here, I probably passed 6 or 8 conditions very similar to this throughout town, and it's, you know.
Yeah, prior conditions aren't
No, I
necessarily
understand, but it's, the other driveways and all that much further down either on the other side as well, so, I just, you know. I understand that, it is not improving it, so, but again, I think, again, we can talk more to the police chief, but I don't know if he has any other things to say.
So I guess this is going over to the DPW, so they didn't notify.
This evening.
The letter from the police chief says he talked to the DPW.
Right. We're talking about turning this over to the DPW.
Yeah,
No,
I haven't
but
seen
we
any
can-
person comment.
We can ask for a sign that put up no parking near the corner as reinforcement. There is an advantage of the turnaround, everybody be coming out facing forward to that driveway, which is somewhat mitigates the issue.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the curb cut for 47 Pleasant Street. Tim Larkin, owner, parcel ID 5508. Is there a plan? A plan dated October 5th, 2022. Scale 1 inch equals 20 feet.
So are we gonna make a condition that the sign goes up, that they coordinate to get that up?
I don't know if it's on, I don't know if that's in our wheelhouse, but.
I think we could certainly write a letter to the board of selectmen, select board, yeah.
I think I'm happy to suggest.
I'd be happy to send a letter to Chuck. After this, I think this is, I know they cleaned up all that stuff, I think, you know, last time, yes, so. Proactive, so. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
The apron, when it crosses the public sidewalk, I don't know if you looked in detail at that grading yet, can that be made compliant as far as the slopes of it, so that it doesn't have more of a cross pitch?
Can certainly try, yes. Yeah.
Okay, because we do see a lot of driveways and when they cross the sidewalk, there's a pronounced slope, which is really difficult for people in wheelchairs, anybody with disabilities.
Yeah, we'll certainly try to do that. I mean, my client's a little bit older and his life, so we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
There's a tree blocking the sidewalk.
I have another question on this. If we were to deny this, what would be your plan B?
Well, part of the problem is we're in 2 different zoning districts. So this upper part here on the north side is in B, so we don't have as much room up here as we do with 10-foot setback. So if we had to push this farther down, maybe lose the yard, and B, we're not too far, we're pretty close to the setback there. So that's,
More discussion? Roll call vote on the motion. Ready?
Yeah.
Foley,
Yes.
Delicio,
Yes.
Strolling.
Yes.
Okay,
You know, it's safe, that's all.
Dave, the chair votes yes.
Um,
Cut approved.
about drainage, I think we.
Yeah, we need to
do
put it out.
last time.
We need to, we said it was condition, we said we didn't want to do it until we approved the curb cut.
Okay, Mr. Novak, can you explain the recharge system? Okay.
Yes, Mike Novak from Patriot. Yes, I think we went over that in the last meeting, but I'm happy to quickly just run through it. 2 systems that are taking the roof area. They've been sized to capture and infiltrate enough water to reduce pre and post. Yeah, sure. How's this? Any better?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry about that. I'll quickly start over. So we did soil testing out there, established groundwater for recharge, sized 2 systems to capture the entire roof area that will capture and infiltrate enough water throughout the design storms to reduce the runoff from the site pre to post conditions. That's the quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's the approach we took.
any questions from the board? Ms. Kenny,
What is the design storm that you're trying to capture?
Bear with me 1 second and I'll let you know. So I looked at the 210 and 100-year storm, the 100-year storm being an 8 inches of water over a 24-hour period. And through all 3 of those storms, our proposed site contributes less water, both rate and volume.
So you could capture the 100-year storm based on how much you're contributing?
Yeah, there will be some runoff because we were limited in size in terms of how much we could do, but we are, I would say, significantly reducing the pre to post. For instance, in the 2-year storm, there's only 42 cubic feet of water coming off the entire site and essentially no rate of runoff. So for the majority of smaller storms, there'll be only the runoff from the driveway, which will be minimal because of the pervious area that is shown, which I did not actually model, so that it's actually a little bit better. So I took a conservative approach to that as well.
So the proposed driveway is all pervious or only the stone turnout?
No, there's that stone turnout, which will capture and keep some of the water from meeting the right of way. I didn't model that, and I'm still showing a reduction. I showed it all coming to the road, but with all the roof captured, there's still a significant decrease.
This is the groundwater overlay district?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry, is this in a groundwater overlay district? Protection district, yes, and you factor that in.
Yes.
I believe the curb cut application says he's 27%.
What's that, impervious?
27.5%. Yeah. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the board?
I guess
Ms. Foley?
my only comment would be that walking past this lot every day, there's an immense amount of cuddling. And I just wouldn't want to see any added to that. You know, that currently is a town issue, I think, because it's unpleasant and Wilmington Ave. Just want to ensure that we're not adding to it.
No, we're, based on Mike's calculations and all the storms, we're capturing the entire roof area, which isn't being done now. So
Yeah.
everything now is, you know, running off and not being captured. So I don't know if it's contributing to that issue, but
Any storm drains in the area?
No, we just looked,
the only one was, I think, somewhere on Pleasant. Where probably not.
we just looked for, I just looked.
There weren't any on Wilmington.
Okay, any additional comments?
The motion, I was just looking for what we're promoting.
I think it's just a determination, right, that this capture plan is okay. And I think my only concern is if the site conditions change, that the board is notified, right? That's what we talked about last time.
We come back.
Yeah.
And that this gets filed with the building. So move to approve the storm water capture plan as presented. Requesting that it be filed with the building inspector. If there are changes in the impervious surface, that the applicant will return to the planning board.
I think it was really site conditions, when they talked about where groundwater was, if they actually get into work and it's
Right.
different, they're gonna come back and.
Well, and also impervious surface or site
All that,
conditions.
yes,
There's second to that.
we need to reiterate that, because I definitely did not write all
Would you make a friendly amendment to? the
Yes.
motion? You accept it.
Of course.
that. Okay.
So for clarity, since we have nobody recording this.
That's what I was
could you
concerned about.
restate?
Okay, I move to approve the stormwater capture plan as presented and request that it be filed with the building inspector. And if there are changes based on site conditions or any changes in impervious surface, that the applicant will return with a new plan to this board.
Is there a second?
Second,
Roll call, Ms. Felicia,
yes.
Mr. Holly. Yes. Mrs. Craig,
Yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Foley,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your patience on this.
Before I turn this over to Sarah, just a quick announcement, which I think you all are aware. I just wanted for the record to receive an email from Sue Brown last week informing me that she submitted a letter of resignation to the town, resigning as our town planner. The last day will be October 20th. From a personal point, I was sorry to hear the news. She was a skilled professional and easy to work with. She helped me through many process questions and through the myriad of topics the board has been going through. Just wanted to wish her the best of luck going forward. Thank you.
Not could I just make one
Greta?
30-second comment? We want to get underway fairly quickly in terms of assessing what all of you feel would be helpful in the planner. That's the direction to go. So towards that end, working with Susan Beckman on a number of different organizational structures for town hall. And so she might be helping me outreach to all of you. Just a 20-minute conversation about what you would like to see as we go forward. What thoughts, comments, suggestions you might have. So either hearing from me or Susan in the next couple of weeks.
And the process, will you be going to other boards also? for
Yes.
that type of information?
Yes.
Any questions or comments?
I think we as a board should discuss it.
Yeah,
We should have a concerted effort and explain.
Yeah,
We might have
that'd
our own
So I can
opinion,
put that
but
on the agenda for,
be- yeah, that would be great.
what's the
November
what's the schedule on this? Or any, I know it's any kind of search going on, you know, what's the process?
So we haven't
Timeline.
advertised, yeah, we haven't advertised yet. we'll probably get that advertised sooner rather than later, even though we go through this process, just to start collecting resumes. But typically, it's a couple months process easily.
Well, I'm thinking about us discussing it maybe after a special town meeting, because we have so much on our plate right now. So it's not too long away, but if you guys want to discuss it sooner, I'll put it on the agenda sooner.
I mean,
You think the
it's
sooner the
part-time,
better?
full-time, I mean, I think there's arguments to be made for both sides, I mean, if you're gonna advertise something, or is there some basics that you're basing it on?
So if your preference is to wait a few weeks, we can do that. And I was,
I would suggest that we get an advertisement going and then we can, the characteristics we want and how we actually frame the job can be formulated in parallel paths. We have a lot of work to do to get this process going. I think the basic, you could take a job description from another town. I would see it. And then I agree, we should have a conversation about how we want to structure the job and.
Let's talk about it. I don't think we can make it a prolonged thing, but let's just get some outlines going.
Or maybe
next
Sue
meeting.
can join us.
So out of curiosity, is she being hired as a consultant to this process?
she worked with, yes, the what's like that had brought her in to have some organizational analysis and process efforts. So yes.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair.
Can we just stop there? So what's going on with the projects that she was involved with? Parking study, how are those all being handled and?
Yeah, so we're giving up amongst existing staff. We're having those conversations.
Okay, so I was pretty involved with the parking study, so I'd like to be involved. So is there projects that you're trying to like turn over to people? Or just randomly designating people to take over? Can we have a list so we as a board can make sure like we
Yeah,
obviously have information maybe that,
The list is pretty simple. There's the parking study,
okay,
there's the Western Woods.
okay,
Separate from you is the MH, or the Housing Authority, and the trust in the RFP process.
I think that is different from us, but it is town land, and so ultimately we're going to be voting on it at some point, right? So I feel like.
Yeah, no, there's overlap.
No, I know that's a prime example that we should be involved with these more, like that's part of the conversation going forward, that I think there was a disconnect. So,
You always have a liaison, right, to that project? Yeah, so there should be that good time.
I think Sue's planners reports for the last 6 months are a good list of the
Yeah.
projects, and just make sure we know how and we get the zoning map updated in the future.
Yeah, that's part of the
Yeah.
list of things to do, yeah.
so do we have the files from the parking study? Are we gonna turn me over files? Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I would ask that, so when Pauline left the planning board, she put all of her files on SharePoint. So I'd like to make sure that we get all the planning department files on SharePoint that we have access to.
Well, I'm not gonna put every file on SharePoint, no.
Well, but I
That's a
said,
huge undertaking, no, that's not something. we're gonna do.
can you tell us where those files will be?
Yeah, they're on the network. On the townwide network, but that's a simple staff file, it's not a public file.
What do we?
I mean, you can get public access to it, obviously, but I'm not gonna put every single document, that would be huge.
No, but I think, people use common sense when they do that. Helene had all sorts of great files that she had in her head, but then she was able to also have put the files onto SharePoint so that when she was gone, we had that knowledge of the board and we can reference back to.
Sure,
Those
so
are the
there
types
critical
of
points
things.
we can certainly identify those needs on, and put this on. I wouldn't go blanket across the board. For every single file she has on share.
So does the new town planner have access to that? I mean, it just
Yes,
seems like a
absolutely.
little.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there an exit strategy plan that involves us?
The exercise is talking to you about how you want to go forward, yes.
Okay, so we're trying to condense, because Sarah's gotta leave at 7, so we have 45 minutes to try to capture the highlights of what we need to get accomplished tonight. So Sarah, I'll turn it over to you for the recodification.
Okay, I think first we need to open the continued public hearing for the purpose of discussion zoning. Do I have a motion to do that? Second,
Second,
Christine? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Ron, yes?
yes.
Thank you. Okay, I met with Alan, hello, Alan, about the two things. One is to make sure the warrant was properly described, and the other is to find any changes that needed to be made in the motions. So what I've handed out here are the track changes for the warrant. Great one, I gave you a copy. And then a clean copy of the warrant, which is to be voted by the select board, but I think it's important that we see it. And it is, so the track changes are the changes that we made from the version that was on our meeting packet. And I believe Alan has said that he doesn't believe any of them are material. So you can see, I checked the links. We added a reference to when a article references a prior article. So for example, the renumbering articles are referenced later. That is referenced. We changed a couple of, made sure that the right section numbers were labeled correctly. Those were the substantive changes. Oh, and yeah. And then we cross-referenced that. I believe Alan has checked to make sure that the sections that we say we're gonna address, we really are addressing. And we made a couple of changes. Those are shown in this summary document that says, which is really our important thing, is the changes to the motions. We'll make the motions on the articles. So I put in red the revised motion, the changes that I made to the motion. So
These are just wording.
these are just wording changes. Again, Alan advised us that these were not material. So you can see section Article 1, I added 0.0 numbers because that's what how they're described. Article 2, Alan pointed out that that construction activity is not numbered in the general bylaw. So this is an opportunity to add a number to it, 45, and add a new section 46 to police and other regulations, and that is stormwater. The next one is Article 3. Compliance sections provided, presented approved. I think there was no change. I can't see the change. I think there was a substantive change there. Article 4 that didn't have anything. Article 5, I just added, we incorrectly had said deleting section 7, and it's actually deleting section 12 as renumbered under Article 4.
So that was one of my questions to you today. So at least the version I have, Article 4 states by deleting section 7.0 blank.
Correct. We fixed that too. That one didn't make it into my changes because I didn't read the section. I deleted section. So if you go to the article, Article 4 now says to see if the town will vote to amend zoning bylaws by renumbering section 7 administration to section 12.0. You're correct. We deleted that out of the article.
Okay,
It was in the article, not in the motion.
correct.
So yes, you are absolutely correct, and we did catch that. I just didn't catch the second by Greg, just so you know. If you're by,
That's two, yeah.
by on 4, maybe I caught it in the final.
So in the version that I have, excuse me, Sarah,
Yeah.
it still says by deleting section 7.0 blank.
Okay, but you don't have the latest one then.
Well, I have that's the latest one you sent me, I think.
Okay. All right, I'll make sure we fix that.
Anyway, as Sarah said, I have checked all the references to existing bylaw sections, both zoning bylaw and general bylaw. And to the best of my ability, I think the references are correct. And Sarah has those that I thought needed to be fixed.
So let's see, section, just to write, section, the motion for section 6. Added the titles, special provisions is what it was currently called. We're changing the name to general regulations. 7, same thing, the prior motion didn't describe the titles. Thing with 9,
I actually make a comment on 7.
absolutely.
So at least the version I have, it says to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaws by adding a new section 7. So I think to be consistent, we're not adding it, we're,
Right, so if you look at the track changes version of that article, it now reads to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaws by deleting section 7 as renumbered under article 4, which would have been 6.1 previously, replacing it with a new section, non-conforming uses. So you are absolutely correct.
okay, so that didn't make it on this one either.
So that's because it's in the article, not the motion.
Okay.
In your right hand is the motions. And then that's the article. So your comment is correct, but it's about the article.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. No, this is why we did this exactly same. Yeah, section 8 did. No, section 8, yeah, go ahead, typo.
Sorry, but it's here, so maybe it doesn't matter. As renumbered on end with a new section 7, so it's minor, and with a.
And with a, okay, yep. And with a. yeah,
So,
'cause I copied, correct.
If I could, Sarah, just to point out, what we really need to get right tonight are the warrant articles.
Right.
There is plenty of time to change the motions if necessary.
Well, except that we want to have them final because we want them up on the website so people can see them.
I understand that, but
Yeah, but we can modify.
if we discover a real problem later, it can be fixed.
Can I ask you a question about 7?
Sure.
So you did remove and make this consistent with case law. Is that no longer the case that it's consistent with case law?
That was your suggestion, Alan, that in the article we removed and to make this section consistent with case law. You just felt that it was unnecessary for informing the public.
It is on what you need to have in the article is sufficient information to give an intelligent voter notice of what's being proposed. The fact that it's consistent with case law is really not so much notice or required to be part of the notice. It is part of an argument or an explanation of why it makes sense to do it.
We'll come to that issue. That's on the. I'll get to that.
I think
Okay.
the select board was looking for that information, whether it was case law or if it's somebody or not.
Yeah, so we talked to town council today. I'll come to that in a minute. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that I would say it's-
The bottom line is town council confirmed that it is consistent with case law. It's just, I think it's not essential to the article or even desirable in the article.
Yeah, and if the case law that we're discussing is only to one portion of what is being changed. So 1 out of the 3 changes.
Well, why don't we come back to that topic? I just want to finish the clarity on the motions and the articles. Article motion for 9, we just changed the title. Motion for 10. Again, added just clarified, just cleaned it up a little bit. All of the articles, how do you fact changes on that one? And then 11. I added the words accessory dwelling units. And change, because it's 9.1 is currently called special housing provisions. 12 and 13, we had not framed them as a motion. We had simply said we move the article as printed. Alan suggested, given the complexity of this compendium, that we should keep the same format, so I just restated the article as a motion. Move to amend zoning bylaws by amending section 9.1 and so forth. So those are the changes to the warrant, and those are the only changes to the motions.
Can I ask you on 12?
So can I just finish with this? These amended motions that show the red, Alan has at least said to me they didn't think they were, that they were material. And they are shown on SharePoint in a folder called October, I just didn't have time today I just got them up there. They're in a folder called October 17th Final. I will send you all a link to that tonight so you have it, but they are there for you to see. So I don't believe we need any change any votes except to recommend a series of articles, although it is the select board's purview to issue the warrant. So I'll take I'd like to see a motion to recommend to the select board the 13 articles as I've presented in the final draft.
Do we have a list? Which ones of these are 50% and which one are these?
Okay, so none of them are 50% is the bottom line. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll tell you that in a minute. What can I just get a?
Oh, I was gonna vote no, if these weren't gonna be determined and we didn't have an answer, so that.
We do have an answer to that. Okay, well, before we vote, why don't I hand out one last thing? So Alan and I invited Chris to that just because it's better to have two ears. We had a meeting with town council today and we asked them for advice on the things that we had asked them advice on. The first one is we'd asked for advice about the swimming pool provision. And they advised that while it is not illegal, it is somewhat difficult to enforce. So why don't I just run through all of the.
You asked what?
You had asked that we ask town council, someone on this board had said, ask town council if our addition of the G, the inspector of building receives written confirmation that all direct butters to the property have received a copy of the site plan and have no objections to a project was legal. Someone on this board asked that we ask it to town council.
So I guess my comment with that is that's why we voted, at least that's why I voted it forward.
I'm not saying we should, I'm just telling you what town council recommended. I'm not,
Are we gonna go back and revote these? I guess.
we can decide whether we want to or not, but I'm
Just one comment on that. So the wording as it stands now, if one person objects, then.
it goes to special permit.
Well, it doesn't say that. And I think it should say that.
Is that what town council said?
Town council recommends that you either treat it as a special permit or treat it as a minor use. This is the.
Don't have a provision.
Well, and if I could, town council also recommended that if you want to keep this concept, that it change from that a requirement that abutters have received and not objected to the swimming pool, that it simply say they have received the site plan and not decline to object.
If there's no objection, then it could go forward as a bylaw use. If there was an objection,
But
it should go back to a special.
It is that, because when you look at the accessory use, when I looked at this today already, swimming pools are yes or ZBA in the table of uses. So yes is here or ZBA if not this. It is listed as a ZBA.
I think the
special
just to add that phrase, otherwise it's just because. So that's your call.
I'd say I'm not really comfortable with this. I think the whole board should have had knowledge of this town council conversation. I mean, I don't feel like we're making a decision on the fly when you all had a conversation and we're given a summary. To me, a summary from town council would have been helpful. This is kind of hearsay. So I'm not comfortable with this.
Okay, so let me continue with, I apologize. We sent this to town council through Greg and sent it a week ago Thursday. Alan has been hounding them and they had asked to have a call today with Alan and he invited us, Chris and me, to sit in And I said yes, because then we could be there as board members. I'm sorry that you don't, and I believe that they have sent a written report, but I haven't even opened my email since that phone call.
They have.
Okay, so we can not, that we have two choices. We can use their advice that we have and make amendments, or we can not make amendments, or we can make. So let me just continue with my report from what they told us, what I heard them say, not what I. The second issue is that the ADU bylaw as written requires a 2/3 majority. And the reason is that our proposed ADU definition does not meet the ADU definition in 40A, because it excludes a provision that no more than half the house area can be included in a ADU. So if we were to amend, anyway, I thought a lot about this.
So if you have a 1,500 square foot house, the biggest ADU you could have is 750 square feet.
And we do not
Instead
include
of the
that.
900.
Right.
Instead of
They
900,
did a formula, like I thought it was like 2/3 versus 900.
no, it's 1/2 versus 900, whatever's small.
And we could, you say, oh, well, we could add that into our bylaw, our proposed bylaw. And let me just summarize by saying it gets too complicated. There are too many changes, to Christina's earlier point, for us to contemplate that at this time. So I think we have to, we move forward with the current, it's my opinion, as we can hash it through. If we want to have a 50% majority, there need to be some fairly significant changes to it as presented in order to have that. No, what's the civil majority? Thank you. We can chew on that for a second. The third thing is that KP Law provided some written comments which we can forward. I haven't opened them. And that the provision for the permissible changes are consistent with bylaws in other towns. And the other thing I believe is that the special permit is permissible as it is in our current bylaw and in the proposed bylaw for the non-conforming uses to another non-conforming use that is less detrimental. So.
So why do we care that it's consistent with bylaws in other towns?
It's precedent and
We're not doing anything.
we're not doing anything crazy. He said it was helpful advice to ZBAs to give that guidance and to boards of health, zoning boards. So that was his feedback, and I'm a messenger here. I'm not really sure I understand what he said. So we asked if the sections on permissible uses were allowed, and he said they are consistent as written with other bylaws in other towns.
They're lawful and consistent.
What did you say?
They're
They're
lawful.
lawful,
They're lawfully consistent.
they are lawful and
Lawful and consistent, not,
consistent.
okay, I'm hearing it.
But do they give, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to find relevancy here. Is it like 80% is
We have-
relevant? I mean, 80% of towns, or, because we never did a town comparison with the non-conforming,
No.
so.
I don't have any input on that. Alan, are there any other inputs from town councils? Have you read their memo? Have they issued a memo? Where are we with that?
I looked at it very quickly, Sarah. I don't think there was anything different from what we heard on the phone call today.
Well, anything different than what I've represented is the question.
I don't think so. I looked at it very quickly.
So in terms of actions based on that, first, I don't think it changes the articles for the warrant. That's the first matter. I think it raises, for me, only one question about whether we want to change the swimming pool provision. So I would, for,
It was 12.6.2.
and that remains on our list.
Okay.
We can
So
never
for
get to.
these, I say make swimming pools still just keep on special permit. Is that one of the options?
It is an option.
So KP Law said they didn't like it as it was written, it was too fuzzy, right? It's in
They
between.
didn't like the portion of the inspector receives written confirmation that all direct butters to the property have seen the site plan and have no objections to the project. It was the and have no objections to the project they felt was a squishy determination for the building inspector to make.
So what was, so the exact.
He said strike that portion of that.
If just
So
one
they'll
person,
allow the-
if one person objects, then it's
It goes for a
special permit.
Well, I think the more basic problem they had with it is that it's essentially proving a negative. The building inspector has to establish that nobody objected. That's difficult to do.
I think this is too difficult to fix at the 11th hour. This is the stuff that we should have been, in my opinion, talking about in August,
Well, I still think you have your protection in place.
which is
Person objects, you go to special permit.
to who? We're talking about by right, like who are they gonna object to?
I disagree with Greg. I think that the use table very clearly says swimming pools or other accessory to a dwelling as defined in 4.3.2 is yes or ZBA for all districts except for, in general, is ZBA. So the use table does say that the ZBA would rule if it's if the criteria are not met. Because there are other criteria, lot coverage and lighting and landscape fencing. Should we discuss? And it is say, but the other thing is, to Greg's point, any special permit does not satisfy the above criteria may be constructed only by the issuance of a special permit from the zoning board of appeals. So it very clearly says ZBA criteria are not
And the
met.
question is by right, so if this isn't, if butters always, I don't know. It's just a little gray to me, if getting some signatures and something wasn't done properly, it just seems a lot to.
The house
Building
sells, and
inspector.
then you've got a new abutter, right? Like you've got 2 years from a special permit, so
Yeah.
somebody says, oh yeah, we approve it, then they put their house on the market, now you've got a new abutter and they say, actually, no, we don't like it, so what does that mean?
Laura? If the intent is we're trying to have a way for someone to object to the project, it doesn't seem to me that there's a forum for someone to object to the project through this method. So if that's the concern. And if the ZBA is granting them anyhow, then let's just make it a special permit. You go through the process. It's just a step you have to go through. Your neighbors, the butters get to talk, and then you have your swimming pool, which is getting approved anyhow. I don't think this is great.
So what I'm hearing is a proposal, I've thought about this again. To strike the number 3 allowed residential accessory uses, number 3, from our proposed motion, and to modify the use table to be ZBA across that accessory use number 5. Is that what I'm hearing, as somebody wants to make a motion for that? Do I have a second? We either vote it up or down, so I think we understand it. Okay, any other
So
discussion?
you restated the motion clearly, so we can.
Yes, the motion is to delete from our article number 1, motion for article number 1 in 4.3.3, residential accessory uses, swimming pools as an allowed use and restrict it to special permit. And we would do that by adjusting table 4.2, accessory uses number 5 from yes/ZBA to ZBA in all boxes where it currently exists.
Okay, so That's good. Is there a second on
Yeah,
that?
we have a second.
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Everybody, I think we know the issue. So I'll take a roll call vote. Mary?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Yes, excuse me.
No?
Yes.
Okay, 5-1.
So we've made two changes to the use table now, right?
The,
Includes EPA on the swimming pools, and the other one was a senior housing change?
no, the other one was the, Mary correctly pointed out that the pets,
Poultry.
poultry, the accessory. Oops, this is the post.
It's one.
It's only allowed in, single resident districts, not SDD, not general, not.
Yeah, and I made that change.
Do we have those changes on the use?
Yeah, we did it on the poster because I did it by hand.
Okay, we gotta make this other change now.
Yeah, and I did it in the packet that you all have. But I didn't do it in the ones that you printed, the other one, the extra ones you
So
printed.
what I would like to do is make the change on the file and then we one. Are we bringing this to,
That's another matter about, that whether or not, we have to talk to Alan about whether he wants to have those in the foyer. And there's some concern about it holding up traffic, but it has been made in the October 17th final version, which now is not final. Okay, so that's changes to number 1. So it's my opinion that ADU article number 11 doesn't change, but it would require 2/3 majority unless we make drastic changes to it. So do I hear any other proposals to make any changes to?
Would you mind just reading the 40A reference again?
The 40A reference is probably in this thing from town council, which I will send to everybody as soon as I open it. The issue is that the definition of an accessory dwelling unit is not larger, this is Sarah's words, not not larger than 900 square feet or 50% of the home's square footage, whichever is smaller.
Right.
So if we were to insert the issue of those whichever 50% is smaller, then what happens is our portions of our proposed bylaw require 50% and portions require 2/3
Of that same bylaw.
of that same bylaw.
This
It
is
has to be a
where-
split. Yeah.
And
And we haven't talked to the public about this, we haven't, I mean, this is where I feel like we are not doing our job, we can't expect the people to understand this on the floor. This is shame on us, in my opinion. I feel like we needed to tell the people this, that so this has been in effect for almost 2 years, this law.
Well, and I thought this article, I was hearing the other night that it was, came from a citizen's petition, but it didn't.
So we have voted as 4-2, I believe, to move Article 11 to the and the motion for Article 11 forward. If you want to vote that again, we can, but we've had that discussion. We currently have a motion, a approved vote of this board to move that forward. And all I'm saying is, in its current form, it's 2/3.
I'm just saying that if it is from a citizen petition, it didn't go through the steps, the select board to the planning board vote, whatever, but if it's from a citizen's petition, do we go ahead and change what they presented to us?
We did.
But in
Which one?
consultation with them, but again, it wasn't a true form citizens petition.
No, it was not, you're correct. It was brought to the planning board by a group of citizens who had thought a long time about this. And thought they were presenting a plan that would both meet the town's needs and comply with the state requirement for the 50% vote. It turned out not to do that, so. The question now is, do we try to change it? Or do we just let it go for a 2/3 vote?
My concern is that there's gonna be conversation on the town meeting floor and the public isn't informed enough to do this. And that's where I feel like we haven't done our job to prepare the people to vote for 50% or 2/3 or what it means. I mean,
Well, so the question is, are we gonna try to change it to 50% or not? And if we do, I think you're right, that's gonna cause confusion. I think it's fine to leave it the way it is and just see if we get 2/3 vote.
but my concern is that people may try to change it on the floor and then it is 2/3, then it has to be 50%. And I don't think people,
So Ellen, if to Christina's point, if somebody were to insert on town meeting floor the 40A provision in order to try to make it have a civil majority, as written, it still would not qualify that gets back into this cycle, this circle of. You'd have to strike other portions of the bylaw. You'd have to strike of the proposed bylaw. You would have to strike the special permit provision because that requires 2/3.
I don't think we,
Yeah, and then you're in worse trouble.
No, Alan's muted.
Oh, Alan, you're muted.
do we need to unmute Alan or?
Yeah, no, I'm
Anybody else?
unmuted, I'm sorry. It really is a scope of the warrant question. And in order to give you a definitive answer, I'd have to know exactly what the proposed amendment was. But it's certainly conceivable to me that someone could move to amend to change the definition of accessory dwelling unit in the proposed bylaw to conform to the state statute.
But then the whole bylaw would still be, we've got the problem of the back part of the
You
bylaw.
need to let me finish, Sarah.
Oh, sorry.
But the second piece of the current motion requiring a special permit and allowing a special permit to be issued for 1,200 square feet doesn't conform to the state statute anyway. But it's also possible, I think, to divide the question. And to divide the question on town meeting floor, either through a ruling by the moderator or by a vote of the meeting to divide the question and separate out the piece that would conform to the state definition and the piece that would not. So I think it's not a great process for a town meeting floor, believe me, but I think it's feasible.
I think we should have talked to the people, had public hearings about this and more. This is, to me, a disaster. I don't think they're our job. If it comes down to people changing this definition on town floor, we didn't do our job.
What's your proposal, Christine?
I mean, I know it. I am not voted for this, but I don't think that we have informed people enough to vote on this on the floor. That's my concern.
I know your opinion. The question is, what do we do about it?
I haven't voted for it to date, so.
Well, the fact of the matter is what this information that came through at noon today has just raised the bar for this article to pass. From what we were currently thinking, which was 50% to 2/3. So its passage is even more difficult. It's a higher bar. It's a 2/3 rule.
But we knew all along that if we weren't matching the 40A. that it
Well,
was
I
gonna
think
be-
we were told that we did match 40A until today.
Who told us that?
I believe what Mr. Bobrowski and Sue told us that if we were under 900 square feet, that we were,
No, because you always have to match the definition of the state.
well, for whatever reason, I was under the impression.
So I guess, I mean, I don't agree
Honestly.
with the ADU bylaw either, but at this point, I would say we keep it as written and.
Even as a 2/3.
Alan, is there a way to? What's the verbiage? If something gets changed, that we just postpone it and maybe put a pause on the question till the spring? That's my concern, that this turns into something that the public doesn't understand on the floor. Is there a way then, and consultation, like if the board feels that this is not, I don't know, being explained properly to pause until spring meeting? How do we do that? If we chose. Just
What-
talk
one-
that idea
once-
out there.
Once there's a main motion on the floor to take affirmative action, I won't allow a motion to pass over
Okay,
because that becomes hopelessly confusing.
okay,
The voter who wants to vote to pass over is going to vote yes when they're really thinking no, and it's just a mess.
But you can do a motion to table.
Yes,
to the spring.
one town meeting can't determine what goes on the agenda on the warrant for the next town meeting. So you can't table with a direction to the selectmen to put it on in the spring.
So then when do we table it to? It just gets.
Tabling it means it dies, basically.
I like Mary's idea. Why don't we run with it as written and take chances that, passes or fails, and if fails, we can circle back and maybe in a year or two, come up with something.
2 years.
Another,
No, you can, excuse me, you can bring it back in the spring. The prohibition under 40A and coming back, waiting 2 years to come back is only for zoning amendments not recommended by the planning board. If the planning board recommends a bylaw, you can bring it back in the spring, even though it's voted down in the fall.
one other thought, Alan, is if the article in this case this is actually a fairly short proposed bylaw, it's like 3 pages. If the article included the entire bylaw, then the scope of that ADU change could not be. I think we're overthinking this.
Are you asking, Sarah, if you included essentially the whole motion as the warrant article,
Yes,
could it be changed?
could it be changed to include the state definition?
I think it could.
Okay.
I think that's still within the scope.
Okay. So I think Christine is suggesting that we that we not include Article 11 in our proposal. Does anybody make a motion to that effect, or are we content to leave it in? Okay, so I'm hearing nothing. We will proceed. The last issue on my loose ends issue is this 12.2.6 section 2, which is the applicability of site plan approval from the planning board. And so I just thought of 2 options. One is to strike the number 2, which is basically any site plan development. And then I realized that there was an and there, not an or, between 1 and 2. So I thought, okay, maybe the intention of this board, because this predates me, was actually when there's a new development that has significant site development. So I combined them into one, and I just picked 50%, but it could be anything. And I said, that it has, oh shoot, it's not 6.1. Not 6.1 on parking regulations. Let me see it fixed. I think Mary flagged that once before. Require 5 more parking spaces, it should be 5. Regardless of the number of parking spaces pre-existing on the premises, and involves the cutting or removal of more than 50% of vegetation. So those are 2 proposals. If somebody has a better idea.
Yes, I'm not. Where this issue came from? Just because of the and?
It was just a fragment. Okay,
No.
nothing else.
So
Original language.
the proposal is under option 1 without the strikeout. That's what's in our motion.
Yeah.
but if it's any site development involving cutting or moving of trees, that means if I wanna remove a tree in my yard, I have to get a site plan review. So I came up with two options, I'm open to anything, but we need to fix it. I think.
Sarah, I think parking is 6.1.
Oh, is it in our new reg?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, thank you. Oh, but it's not 6.1. When this is. Yeah, 6.1 is about conforming uses. Yeah.
No, but we'll change it.
No, we won't. No. Oh, maybe we will. Wait,
6.1 currently is not.
yes, I
Yes,
know.
I know, but the new
No,
one, the new 6.1. I guess it's a question of time.
It is a really important question. Yes, and renumbering 6.1, non-conforming uses in its subsections. And then the problem is we have to reorder 5 and 6. Those reasons. So this has to become 6, and this has to become 5, because 6, a new 6 becomes. The old 6, there's no, this 6.1 is blank until we adopt the new 6. Okay, yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Currently, it's 6.2, right?
Currently 6.2.
Yeah, it's currently 6.2, but when we adopt the new 6, it becomes 6.1.
Okay,
We just need to, if we reorder those two articles, I think that will solve it. And I think actually 12 references section quite often.
yeah, sure it does.
So, okay, we can make that change. Okay, back to the matter at hand of 12.2.6, Laura.
Between the two options, it strikes me that the first is the better one, because with the second, I think we've unintentionally made it harder to get to site plan approval, because if you have 4 spaces, you don't get site plan approval unless you're also cutting out 50% of the vegetation. I don't think that's what's intended. And I think the right place to deal with this is probably in the topo and land clearing, which we know we need to go back to. We
Right.
wrote the purpose, but there's a lot more work to do on
Yeah,
that.
I agree with you, but
I think it's better to leave it and
Strike it
put
here
on
and
the
then
list.
come back to clean it up later. Yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, this
Wanna make a
actually makes
motion to
site
that
plan
effect?
review.
I'll make the motion to
strike number 2.
strike number 2.
Okay, so for the record, the motion is to strike from our proposed motion in 12.2.6, number 2, and strike any site development which involves the cutting and removal of vegetation, etc.
And the word and.
And the word and from the previous paragraph. So I have a Chris, who seconded that? Okay,
So what are we going on?
my option number 1.
Just gonna say yes.
And
Cross that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little weird. It's not- Board of Health, but not just TP or LCP.
is correct, okay, let's, so, okay, all in favor of, the strikeout of number 2? In favor?
So this is just, the only threshold here is 5 parking spaces?
There is no more threshold, we don't even,
Single, change of use in other than singular family is more than 5 parking spaces, this is for site plan review, but there's, as Laura says, the topo section deals with this vegetation issue. This has been on every meeting for agenda for the last, okay, it is passes with 1 abstaining, I didn't see, Christine, did you abstain or you?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, and 5 voting for it, 5 voting for it. 5 to 0 1, okay, thank you.
So could you explain, you said that residential conservation cluster and senior housing would need 2/3. Can you explain how town council came to that?
because neither of them are by right.
Okay. Let's say here at the less. Sorry. So I want to go back to the warrant.
So the second part of 48 doesn't require special, it says special permit.
Okay, the second part of what?
48. So diminution in the amount of parking required for a residential mixed use development, that's special permit.
Well, no, the use is by right, then you can condition it with special. Like,
Oh, when you're talking about the RCC and senior.
yeah,
Yeah. You're right, because they do say that
There's two parts to it.
yeah.
Alan, maybe you can weigh in on this. The question is, does the 40A civil majority apply to the residential conservation cluster or senior housing? And Chris's answer was no, because none of that use can, either of those uses can happen except by special permit. And 40A would require that they happen by right and be conditioned by special permit. Is that?
40A number 2 is an amendment to the zoning ordinance or bylaw to allow by special permit. And then it lists, 3 or 4, 5 things, but that's special permit. So it's reducing in parking, reducing this, reducing that, which we do. So I see a conflict. I don't have a clear answer here. What is and what isn't.
But I did think 48 was all about multifamily housing, so I don't know, to your point, I don't know if it's stipulated by right, does for ADUs, but for the other.
So, but for tonight's discussion, we have voted to move forward residential cluster and senior housing on the warrant. And so it seems to me it's Alan's problem to figure out if they are a civil majority or not.
Maybe the planning board should know. I mean, just
Well, we should know before town meeting, but for the warrant, I don't think that
I
that.
love it if I was wrong.
So is Bobrowski out of the picture?
No, we can ask him, I guess.
We asked him about this and he didn't give us. He gave us a different answer than Copeland and Page, and Copeland and Page is who town council, who Alan uses, so.
But
I think-
he's not gonna be at town meeting or anything.
We could ask them if we want. But I mean, it's up to us. If we think we need them
Well, we
there.
can't-
I don't think we did everything on our own really, since
We've made a whole heck
we've
of a lot
done
of
a lot of
changes.
stuff on our own.
I guess without legal counsel, I guess that's the concern, right? So now we're in this,
The
We
legal
can have them. We can have them.
town council reviewed these motions,
we still don't know what their 2/3 are simple.
but what
Like,
difference does it make for us at this moment? It's a question for Alan to count the votes. Does it matter? It doesn't, let me speak for myself. It does not change my vote on whether we advance the articles, whether it requires 10 votes or 2/3.
It matters to me. I
And
think it matters to our communication plan.
Does it change your vote?
I think our communication and our message to the public is different. We didn't talk about this at all. I think it does matter. I think zoning traditionally is 2/3. That's why this law was passed. So I think we have a duty to tell the people.
Well, if it turns out that it can be done by majority, absolutely, we tell people.
I have to say, I have looked only at the ADU motion with respect to the quantum of vote question, so I can't express an opinion on others. But town council did say on our call today that in their opinion, all the other zoning amendments required 2/3. So I'd be surprised if I come to a different conclusion.
Okay, so tonight I would like to get a motion to approve the warrant as presented tonight as final. I think we had one typo. And reordering Articles 6 and 5 Do I have a motion? Do
I'll make that motion.
I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, 4-2. Great, thank you. Any other discussion on the motions or the motions will go to this website in their October 17th final form. So we are making 2 changes as of tonight. One is to the swimming pools in motion 1, and one is to the 12.2.6, which is now motion 6.
Before we adjourned, are we?
Well, I wanted to just give any opportunity for any other comments or questions or.
I had a
concerns.
couple of comments.
Yeah.
More process.
Yeah, okay, but before we do that, any more substantive? Did you?
Well, I have a lot, but, these are gonna get posted to the website as well, if they're not already.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we had typos from before, some, minor, like the special granting authority being sometimes it's capitalized, sometimes it's an acronym, sometimes,
Yeah.
like, where is all that happening and when, and.
We have no staff to do this, so I think we have it's my opinion, I've spent. I know you're not criticizing, but let me just say that we don't have anyone who can do it.
I am 100% not criticizing. My
I know.
concern, and I guess this will be part of the discussion, is we had staff. And we have staff till the 20th. These things still aren't getting done. So, I know I'm speaking to the choir, but
I don't think they will be.
It won't be done, it won't be perfect.
no, I don't, but
If there are errors-
If you're thinking staff is gonna do something.
no, and
now,
staff
they're
hasn't
not.
been doing, so that's my concern, but.
We need
But we can't post to the website and say, these are legal motions
Why can't we?
that have typos and haven't. Well, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, our current zoning is full of typos
Yeah,
and
this
inconsistencies.
is so much better than what we have now.
You're right, there are absolutely are.
We're not gonna get a perfect document.
You're absolutely right, but
So, and then my only follow-up with that is I had some back and forth with Chris today, but in my opinion, with things that are moving to the general bylaws, the curb cuts, the stormwater management, what else right now? Like, we have no processes in place that if these get approved at town meeting, we don't have the checklist for curb cuts. We don't have the, the regulations to pass off to DPW. We don't have any of that.
so it has to go to the Attorney General before it becomes in effect. So we can draft, and I found it somewhere in the dregs of the internet, of the SharePoint, your checklist. So let's get it done. Let's do it. Let's make,
That was
November
my checklist that I
15th.
Tried to do.
so November 15th, let's resurrect that and get it done. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Let's get it done. We can do it. We can, it's not, we've kind of hashed through these issues. Let's write them down and make them our regulations.
And the great thing about regulations is that we don't have to go to town meeting to change them. We can
Right.
put up together regulations, they don't work, if something's wrong, we fix it.
And then who, I mean, it's not us, but I don't know, select board, who does it? Like, so if this ADU passes, there's a ton of stuff that's new to the building inspection. Who puts all those processes in place? I just, again, not in our purview, but I think as a town, we haven't really addressed this, that here we are moving forward, spent almost 50,000 on a consultant, and we're still scrambling to be probably right where we were.
I think we've made big changes in the substance of the regulations.
But I mean with enforcement and
Right,
paperwork and.
we're all volunteers, we're all
No,
volunteers.
no, 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 not our, you know,
Yeah.
the building
Yeah.
department.
I think
and-
it's worth having conversations about how regulations get enforced going forward. I think that's a. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't improve our bylaws. Says in the act. So. Okay, so that is a topic that we need to continue to keep on our agenda, is how do we enforce things and what changes can we make in April? If that's what it takes, and, you know, let's bring it back to an agenda, to a meeting. And make some specific proposals, rather than identifying it, to only identify as a problem doesn't help move us forward. And I agree that there's a curb cut checklist, if you can bring that back from whatever. It's on the SharePoint, I found it. No, but let's do it, we have.
Well, I tried, yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to have the planning board too, but.
We now set, the general bylaws now set, the proposed general bylaws say, the planning board will issue regulations for curb cuts.
Yeah, we'll have.
So we can do it without zoning changes. Okay, any other changes or modifications to our,
No, I was just asking the board at our drop-in, did we hear any ideas from the public that were anything of substance that we wanted to maybe include or talk about?
So there was very few questions that were put down on the sheets. There were some questions about pollinator gardens and that was important that we should talk about. Let's see, the question of why by right, all abutters should be aware of all changes should be provided by planning zoning boards. Are there that many special permits in our town a year now? One. Let's see, this is the big pollinator one. They don't want kennels. Ducks and hamsters and ferrets.
What about the parrot?
Just before you leave, Sarah, just a couple of things. Oh, are you done?
I think,
Yeah. We have a clock ticking on this public hearing for the Crocker Boat
so
Yard.
before we do that, so can we close out this the continued public
Okay.
hearing?
Right, the cricket articles, are we doing a third one? Is this one gonna be posted, is understanding not?
So I uploaded to SharePoint some changes, actually, Mary found a typo and a couple of good suggestions, which I've incorporated. I put a little introduction to it. And it's on SharePoint for everybody to take a look at.
Yeah, there is one that I don't agree with, so I would like to step forward.
Okay.
You guys just do that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I took photographs of all the boards. And Tiffany wanted to know if we could post those on the website.
We just do PowerPoint slide?
Yeah, that would look so much cleaner.
That would look so much better.
Do we have the PowerPoint slides? in there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would do that.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
A third cricket article, or we haven't had nothing last week, are we thinking about putting some more information?
We had discussed the table going in.
Yeah, I talked to Erica Brown today.
And you said you cut out all the clicks.
Yeah, I cut out the clicks. And I sent it to her and said, is this something you can put in the insert? If you finish to look at it, back to me.
I think that would be worthwhile.
Well, I'm gonna.
And we do the close, we close the.
So I give you comments on that table.
Sure.
Just, you can just close it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
We'll continue it or close it. There, we want to continue this, or we're done?
I mean, they're voting tonight, right? So we're not gonna do.
Let's close it. We're gonna close it.
Okay, move to close, is there a second? All those in favor? So close. So, just the last thing, before we get to the minutes, the clock is ticking on this public hearing that we need to post. Because I think they have 65 days since they applied, which was September, I think, 65, and I think it is 55. So that's like November 18th. So I asked you guys if you could make a meeting on election day, and I know Mary said no. I said yes, and you said no. And I had
I didn't see this email.
Okay, so can you make the 8th? It's a Tuesday, or I could move it to the Wednesday, the day, the 9th. Does that work for
Can we
everyone?
not do it on the Monday? I mean, it's a little.
Well, the Mondays with the select board is meeting then.
We could do it the same, just like we did today, earlier.
I hate to hold a public hearing in this room, but we could.
It's
Do it on the Monday, would that
pretty
be
disruptive to keep going to these different.
the same day as a select board, a public
I
hearing?
have a problem overlapping with the select board.
So the select board's actually talking about our two proposals, the Crawford and Manchester tonight.
Tonight.
They blocked out a half hour, which is a lot for them. They're probably still talking about it. That's what I wanted to look
Well,
at.
that's on a-
Started at 16.
No, we can watch it.
True. Yeah, be fine. Okay, so anyway, we gotta set a date, so. Monday and Tuesday seem to be a problem. I'm thinking Wednesday, the 9th. I know Sarah said you can make the 9th. I know,
I can do it.
you do the 9th, Mary or Christina and Laura.
I could do the
Important that
9th
we're
if
all-
we, yeah, if we could get back to the having meetings on, like after town meeting, can we get back to our?
Absolutely, this is
schedule?
just, it is just.
Too much to.
So it would be at 7 on the 9th, and it would be these two, and I think there's an issue with the Parks and Rec one. I don't think that's coming back, but I'll check.
Steve's not coming back.
The issue on the Parks and Rec was, I think they didn't have the right,
They didn't have,
the right
bylaw.
numbers.
so they just had to repost.
Right, so, but somebody wrote me, they said that they were revisiting that, and I haven't heard back. Who wrote that? Was it Greg? I forget.
I don't know. Look at your email, I wish you did.
Somebody said that they were revisiting and they get back to me. So I don't know. So, okay, so the 9th, we can put it in the, well, waiting on,
I don't know, football game,
Crew.
but
Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday at 7.
So can you forego football for 1 week? It's cold.
I'm the
It'll be-
quarterback.
It might be raining.
I mean, yeah, oh, my quarterback? I said I'm the quarterback.
You're the quarterback?
Gee, Chris. It's my son's game.
Oh.
I don't know, I mean, I'm a tentative, I know I could do the 18th.
The 8th,
No, what did you say before?
the 8th, it's
Eighth.
election day. Is that an issue for,
I can't do it, and I think it's not a good idea to put a public meeting on.
I
You want to
know
encourage people to get to the polls,
thought that.
sit there and watch.
So I'm thinking the 9th. I'll put that in motion. Maybe the football game will get rained down.
They never rain football game.
You can read, you have to.
Okay, thanks. I'll talk to Gail about the 9th. Great, thank you all. And then the last thing with these minutes, and I posted them late. They were on the meeting for last times, but did you?
And they're very short, I looked at them, basically said who attended and
Yeah, they were really small.
I wasn't there,
so,
so.
you know, none of us were there, I think it was you and.
I don't know if I was there or not.
Was the three of us?
But it was,
There was only
Not
3
substantive.
members there. You shouldn't have had the meeting. But there was only 3.
well, there was nothing substantive on those meetings, I'm fine with passing.
Okay,
Well, we weren't there, I don't think we can vote on it.
Yeah, I guess that's right. They don't have a quorum to vote on. In fact, that's, they may never, because it wasn't a quorum at the meetings.
all right, let's forget about this.
I was voting on something, that means nothing, so.
Okay, so I have our next meeting in October 24th, I think. Is there anything else we need to do? I don't guess Sarah's not here, but
So the harbor,
I'm thinking of
harbor
the night,
plans come on the, oh, they come on the ninth.
11/9. Yeah, 11/9.
And the 20.
Unless Gail has already advertised the 8th, I never know. Sometimes.
And, okay, what's on the agenda for the 24th?
I'll let you all know what happens and I'll put in buy-in remarks and.
And then we've gotten a number of correspondence about,
From Peter Stark.
a
Jim's gone.
couple of people written letters.
And from the neighbors, there was a lawyer
Yes.
letter.
From
Do we
the,
have a folder for this, or?
We have an applications folder, we should be getting away from that again.
I've been,
Nothing seems to be
I've
consistent.
been putting whatever I find in our meetings folder now. I think Sue was taking care of that, so we'll need to get someone up to speed on doing that. Because I don't think Gail's that up on SharePoint yet,
Maybe for the moment, it could just go in the meeting folder that we're
right?
meeting
And then
on.
we'll have to move.
We'll get organized. Get organized.
So when the things are posted in the paper, I mean, that's, to me, it should just be given to us as a courtesy, like, so we know. We shouldn't be reading this stuff in the paper for the first time as planning board
What
members.
she plans to write and send to the cricket.
She has the public notice to the cricket, it should go into our folder, so we know before the cricket, the general population knows. And I read about these for the first time in the cricket.
We need the help.
I just don't think it's that difficult to copy into a folder. I don't think that.
I agree with that. Okay, I'll take anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night. I go next door.
Night, Alan.
Thank you, Arnell. Thank you.
That was at 6:50 to 7:20. Let's see.
You think you missed it?
Well,